A very good afternoon to all of you. Myself, Professor Prasad Sahasrabudra from Department of MBA at Devgiri Institute of Engineering and Management Studies. I welcome you all to the short-term training course in skill development and futuristic technology by Madan Mohan Malviya Institute, Dr. Bamu University, Aurangabad. So this is a case regarding the communication skills. So let us start. First of all, we will try to understand what do you mean by communication skill. Communication skill is nothing but a way in which you can effectively transform your thought to the next person. So these are the some of the objectives related to communication that you have to define and understand the communication and communication process. It simply means that before communicating to some person, or you can say uh, before communicating, you have to understand what is the objective of communication. Then suppose if next objective is, if suppose a person is not able to effectively communicate, then you have to remove certain filters or barriers. What do you mean by filters and barriers? In simple terms, filters and barriers are nothing but, if suppose, let us take an example that a person is hesitate enough to communicate, or is shying enough to communicate. So you have to make him feel comfortable so that he can effectively communicate his or her own ideas. Then you can say practice active listening. uh, this is one of the most important objectives of communication skill, that you have to be a good listener, because unless and until you don't listen to the next person, you will not be able to understand what he or she is trying to say. And the last point is tips to improve verbal and non-verbal communication. What do you mean by verbal and non-verbal communication? Communication can be either through face-to-face talking, like taking an interview or communicating in between the friends, or non-verbal communication means you are sending some mails or you are replying to an email, etc. So these are, you can say, one of the four most important objectives of communication skill. Moving further, what do you mean by communication? As I have already explained, that communication is nothing but your idea or what you want to say should reach to the next person in a crystal clear way, so that he can act accordingly. But many times we have seen that also lot of conflicts, whether it is interpersonal or interprofessional, that happens due to lack of effective communication. So communication is nothing but a art, or it is a art, or it's a, you can say, a practice which can be developed over the years to effectively communicate your own idea to the next person without any hassles or filters. So you can say, moving for the next point, its essence. What do you mean by essence? Essence means, you can say, the important things which are required to effectively communicate. So there is nothing but, it is a process, you can say, which occurs in between two people. Two people means who can be either friends, family, or you can effectively communicate with your colleague wherever you are working. So, and the while doing the communication, the first and the most important thing is, you have to adjust yourself with the behavior of that person, because as the personality of the person changes, you have to change your mode of communication. What I mean to say is that while communicating with some person, you have to be more active listener. While communicating to other person, you have to be more proper communicator. So as the personality or the behavior of the person changes, you have to change your modes of communication. That is why in the previous slide we have said that there are two types of communication: verbal as well as non-verbal communication. The next thing is that when you try to emote, or you are when you try to, you can say, in simple terms, you can, when you want to talk to next person with effective communication skills, you will be able to express your thoughts or emotions very easily. And it is it is considered that a person who is a good communicator is a well established personality in the social as well as his personal or professional affairs. So you can say this is a very important process for anyone. Moving further, what are the most common ways we communicate? How do we communicate? So, as I've told you, these are the four things which we can use for effective communication. First is spoken word. It is said that by using it is said that by using words you can impress anybody or you can harm anybody. So it is very important that whatever you are communicating, the next person to whom you are communicating should not get harmed or should not think in a negative way. So we should think before using a word. Then you can say visual images. Visual images, where do we use this? When you are, suppose you are teaching to a class of, let's say, 20 to 25 students, and you are using a visual image. So there is a huge possibility that the students can understand this in a better way rather than just reading up the definitions. And it is also one of the important things which is required for teachers to effectively communicate to students by using a picture for defining or explaining the whole concept. Then you can say the third part is the written word. What do you mean by written word? It can be either used in the face-to-face communication, or when you are communicating or emailing to some person, it can be used. And the fourth one is the body language. What do you mean by body language? Body language means your expressions when you are communicating with some other person, whether you are giving a smile or whether your expressions are such that the next person thinks that you are getting bored or irritated by his communication. So body language, in all this, body language is the most important way or important trait, as per my opinion, in effectively communicating with the next person. Moving further, these are some of the types of communications. Downward communication means, you can say, it is simply used in communicating from higher authority to lower authority. When, in simple terms, if you want to say that when you want to give some instructions to the other person, we can use downward communication. Exactly opposite to it is upward communication. Suppose there is an office in which 4 employees are working and a boss is there. When a boss communicates with them, the employees, it is a downward communication. And when the employees want to communicate something to their boss, it is a upward communication. Moving further, you can say we can communicate in between the colleagues also. And we can further move, what are the communication networks? The next part is what do you mean by communication networks? Communication network is nothing but, you can say, a group of people in which you are communicating. Like suppose you are talking with people in a physical mode, who can be your colleagues, friends, or your family. Then you have a network, just like using social media of WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Twitter, in which you communicate with a person who is sitting in a next city, working at a specific designation in any organization. So it is your informal network. In simple terms, you can say that today everything works on network, right from getting a job to getting a business idea, working that business idea, everything works on network. In today's time, in digital era, network plays a very, very important role and effective role. Moving further, the next part is, this is one of the, as I have told you in the previous slide, this is a simple example of a hierarchy of communication. The first part, executive director, this downward arrow indicate that the communication is being done by if executive director to foreman. This is a simple a hierarchy level which we study. So in this, what we can conclude from this diagram, the first diagram, we can conclude that if the directions or the instructions of the executive director can be reached to foreman by these levels. Executive director will not directly talk or communicate with foreman. First he will talk with the vice president, then the AGM, then the manager, likewise till the foreman. So these are, you can say, in between executive director and foreman, these are the 4 different hierarchies through which the communication will reach till foreman. Now in the second part, this is the first part is called as the vertical communication, and the second part is what we call as horizontal communication. What do you mean by horizontal communication? In simple terms, we can say that there is anyone can talk with the other person without having any filter. What do you mean by filter? In this first part, executive director is not directly talking to foreman. If he wants to communicate his ideas, he has to go through all these levels. But that is not the case here. If you see here in this diagram, supervisor 1 can talk either with 2 or 3 without any hassle or without any filters. The ideas can be effectively moved from one person to another, and all these 3 supervisors are controlled by the manager. So whatever instruction manager has given, suppose let us take an instance that manager has given some instructions to supervisor 1, that can be easily communicated to supervisor 2 and supervisor 3 in horizontal communication. What distinguishes these two or differentiate these two, that is when we are talking at the same level in any organization, when we are at the same level, we can make a use of horizontal communication. And when there are different hierarchies or multi-level in big organizations, we make use of this vertical communication. So this is a simple a diagram or a block diagram of communication process, in which a person at one end is called as the sender, who sends the messages, and on the other hand there is a person called as receiver, who receives the messages. It can be, as I have told you previously also, it can be either through mail or in a face-to-face communication. And this is going to play a very important role in the coming time, as we have to communicate effectively to the small group of people. In micro teaching also, what we are doing is, there are a small bunch of people and we have to effectively express our ideas or thoughts to the next person. So in that, this will play a very important role. So that's all from my side. I hope you are able to understand the whole communication process very easily. Thank you. Have a good day.